Are you feeling overwhelmed by hormonal changes? If you're a woman, you're not alone. With over 1,000 hormone disruptors in our environment, it's no wonder things can feel out of balance. On top of that, natural changes like PMS, menopause, and other life stages can leave you feeling tired, irritable, and trapped in a constant battle with your body. But here's the good news. You don't have to suffer through it. Hormone Harmony by Happy Mammoth is here to help. This herbal formula fine-tunes your hormones, balancing estrogen, testosterone, and even stress hormones like cortisol, which can contribute to weight gain, racing thoughts, poor sleep, and more. With over 40,000 five-star reviews and a bottle selling every 24 seconds, the results speak for themselves. Ready to feel like yourself again? For a limited time, get 15% off your first order at happymammoth.com using code NEXTCHAPTER at checkout. Visit happymammoth.com today and get your old self back naturally.
Everything is better on a boat, and your vacation is no exception. This year, experience the world's most beautiful destinations aboard your own private yacht charter with the Moorings. Our fleet of modern, custom-designed yachts is just one reason we were recently voted Best Caribbean Yacht Charter Company by readers of Caribbean Journal. So when you next explore the Virgin Islands, the Bahamas, or elsewhere, don't accept anything less than the Moorings. Your vacation time is precious, so make the most of your freedom on the water. Book your perfect charter at moorings.com. Nothing less than the Moorings.
Coming up on episode 307 of Wheel Bearings, we've got the 2023 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring, the Mercedes-Benz EQS SUV, Rolls-Royce banning scalpers, battery plant NIMBYs, a new electric Caterham, the 2024 Chevrolet Traverse. EVs are piling up. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 with a simulated 8-speed DCT and more. Coming up next. This is episode 307 this time of Wheel Bearings. I'm Sam Abu-Al-Samad from Guidehouse Insights.
And I am Nicole Wakeland from the Road Reflective podcast.
And I'm Roberto Baldwin from, where do I work? Hot Cars and Top Speed.
All right. Excellent.
Hot Cars. Every car comes with a free hot dog.
got a new job.
I got a new job.
Free hot dog. Yeah, congrats on the new job. Go, Rob.
News and features content manager. I have to open up email every podcast and look at my signature to remember what my job title is. Like, I know what I do. It's just the job titles to me are ridiculous.
Job titles are ridiculous.
Just let me do my job.
You just want to do it. You don't care what they call you.
I just want to do my job.
Well, let's start with this job by telling us what you drove, Robbie.
Well, Sam, you might be surprised to find out that I drove the 2023 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring all-wheel drive.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what? I drove the same thing.
Exactly. Almost the exact same. Mine was gray.
And mine was infinite black. Which is not exactly infinite, but you know.
It's.
I mean, if it's infinite, you would expect it to be something more like Vanta black. This was actually.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember the tuxedo black that they used to have on Lincolns back about 10 years ago?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Black that had like little glass, little balls of glass in the paint.
I don't even remember this. Was it really? Did it look cool?
Yeah, it was a really nice black.
Yeah.
A little different from your typical metallic black, but.
Okay.
Anyway, what did you think of the Corsair?
It's a car.
Wow.
All right, so it's okay. I like the Lincoln Navigator, like the new Lincoln. It's nice. You get into it, you know exactly what it is. It's very nice. It's comfortable. It drives well. I really like the dash cluster because it's very low key. It's very chill. When you turn things, like it has a little animation, but really it just tells you you're in a certain mode. It's a nice large luxury SUV. The Corsair it's an SUV. It's a luxury SUV, but there's so many things in it that make me feel like if you bought this as a luxury SUV, you would be a little irritated.
Oh, irritated.
For example,
that's not good.
So they have the little gear selection. It's all those little buttons, but it's kind of underneath, like a little ledge. And to the left of that, still underneath the ledge, is the power button. Start, stop, turn it on, ignition.
Yeah, they're kind of hidden.
It's a hidden power button. So I knew where this was. I've had this car for a week, and then last night I had to finish my PHEV, my all electric test. And so I got out into the car and I was doing stuff and I was plugging in my phone to make sure I had some, whatever to listen to. And then the lights turned off and I knew where it was, but I couldn't figure out where to press. I was pressing above, I was pressing below it. I couldn't find the start button.
That's not ideal.
That is not, yeah, it's like hidden under there. And the first time I got in the car, I was like, where is this? I'm like, well, that just looks like an error. So
we should explain that for model year 2023, launched earlier this year, the Corsair and also the Ford Escape, which shares its platform with this, both got a refresh, a mid-cycle refresh. They've been on sale for a few years now. They got some styling updates, and in the case of the Corsair, they did some interior changes as well, which includes a larger center touch screen and kind of reshaped the dashboard. And I seem to recall previously on the Corsair, those sort of like piano keys switches for the transmission and also the on-off switch were not quite as far back.
They weren't like hidden up in a cubby like they are now.
Yeah.
In a cubby.
Let's just shove them up here. The things that you need to turn the car on and shift gears, just shove them up in there real quick. And so then right below that is this big like rectangular area. And in the middle of that is a really small line of buttons. And so it feels like there's just this empty space and then a little line of buttons. And if you push any of those buttons, the whole little plastic thing moves. Like the entire plastic thing moves. Like if you push the button.
Because it's actually one piece of plastic.
It's one piece. So it feels really cheap. It just feels, it's just... It just feels
a sigh. That's terrible.
It just feels like they're like, oh, we gotta make a small little SUV. What should we take from the Lincoln? I don't know. You know what? We can get the dash cluster, and I guess was it Active Glide? We got all these other things.
Oh, it's Blue Cruise now. They dropped the Active Glide.
Mine says Active Glide, but
it does say Active Glide when you turn it on in the cluster. But everywhere else, it's officially called Blue Cruise now.
Oh my god!
They're dropping the Active Glide branding. So presumably, when they push out the 1.3 update, which they just announced today as we're recording this, hopefully that will change to Blue Cruise.
So that's another thing.
So
driving Active Glide is. It's not. I mean, it's Blue Cruise. It's okay. As a hands-free system, I drove 7 hours one day in it. I had to go to the Central Valley in San Joaquin Valley on Saturday. So I drove it all the way there. I drove it all the way back. I used Blue Active Glide.
Blue Active Glide.
No, I believe that's Active Blue Glide.
Blue
Active Blue Glide. I drove it there, and it was fine, but I kept my hand on the wheel like the entire time because it would like sometimes it would just be it would be on the edge of a lane, like it wasn't centering correctly, and it's just like everything about the car it just can't kind of irritate me.
Blue Cruise Glide essentially the same software and everything as Blue Cruise? Is there a difference?
Yes, no, it's exactly the same.
It's the same.
It is exactly the same. Okay, that's what I thought. Just the name that was
it's the same.
Different. Okay.
It's just
you know what it is that they initially wanted to distinguish it, so they gave the Lincolns a different brand for the exact same functionality. And they called it Active Glide on Lincoln. But then earlier this year, when Consumer Reports had their ADAS study, and we had Kelly Funkhauser on, and they named Blue Cruise the best ADAS system. I think after that they decided, well, Blue Cruise has been named number one, so we got to use the Blue Cruise branding. So they switched it.
Oh, that makes.
on
I
the
get it.
I
Lincoln.
understand, but they didn't. It's just a weird. Fine, it should have just been called Blue Cruise. But I know they want
Yeah.
Lincoln's
I
the
know.
premium, and we're gonna use Active Glide. Is such a weird name.
Yeah.
Active
I-
Glide.
It sounds
I mean, it's the same thing. You know, they don't.
It sounds like you get something you get from an adult
Yeah.
It
store.
does.
They-
That's exactly
yeah.
what
It's an
it
adult
sounds
store
like.
thing. What I went and got some Active Glide. We're gonna have a nice
100%
weekend.
does. That's all I can think of when I hear them. I'm like,
Go on to a nice
ew,
movie.
Ew, this is not what I want for my.
What'd you pick up in
self-driving car.
Amsterdam? I got some Active Glide.
Oh gosh, I'm so glad they ditched that name. That was. It's just no.
It's
I
a
had not
very-
thought of that until just now.
Oh, that's
clearly
exactly what
Nicole
I thought.
and I are not good people.
are both terrible humans because I'm like, oh, that's not the product they think it is. Yeah.
So yeah, so the seat, I could not get comfortable in the seat. My
It's got
back was
24
fine.
adjustments. How
I know, and all those adjustments, and I couldn't get it to just be comfortable.
It's 10,000 way adjustable, and you weren't.
It's
comfortable.
10,000 ways to make it. You know what? It was nice though. The massage function was nice.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, but I think the massage section is why my legs and my butt hurt while I was driving this thing, because it's just like metal underneath it instead of like cushion. They're like, well, we got to have the massage for the butts, so should we put some cushion in there? Nah,
Just butt massage. That's all we need.
just a metal. So driving around, I didn't have any issues with the drivetrain, no chassis issues. It's a really fancy Ford Escape, which is just a less fancy Bronco Sport. So
It makes me think of like nesting dolls. You just go from the fanciest to the,
Yeah.
to
So
the least
Escape,
fancy, like
Bronco
one of those
Sport, Corsair.
Matryoshka dolls or whatever they
and
are.
the
yeah.
Maverick.
So Maverick, Escape, Bronco Sport, Corvair.
So
Corsair.
there are 4 vehicles on this platform, and 2 of them are good, and 2 of them it's not that the Escape is bad. It's just that the Bronco Sport is better.
Yeah.
And the Corsair is just it's in a market. It's the starting price is like 8,000 below. Starting is about 8,000 below like BMW and Mercedes and whatever.
It's like 30. It's just under $39,000.
Okay. So yeah. So it's it's not as expensive as what you're going to get from the Germans, but it's also, you can really feel that $8,000 that $8,000 difference. Like you get into the GLC, the new GLC, and you're just like, they didn't even have to really change anything. They just did little tweaks here and there and made little updates, and it's just such a nice vehicle. And I just feel like the Corsair with the update, it's just, I don't know what they're doing with this. I think they're trying to nickel and dime and save some cash. And, I understand, you got to try to save some money. But if you're buying into a luxury vehicle, it's like just making it kind of look luxury doesn't make it luxury. And that's how I feel about the Corsair. On my EV only drive, I got 24.8 miles EV only driving. I did hit some, it's really windy here during the summer. So sometimes you're driving like against 40 mile an hour headwinds.
Yeah. I mean, I did my usual loop, and I actually got 33 miles.
All right. So yeah. So
it's officially rated at 28. So
yeah. So when I started,
between us, we averaged out about 28.
Yeah. So when I started, it looked like it was going to hit 28, and then I had to do the freeway portion, and it was just like. I was like, "Well, this is it." I just watched the range just get hammered. I'm like, "All right, well, I got to make sure to mention this." Yeah. So we put some stuff in it. We took it for a drive. It wasn't I don't know. I just change the seats, fix that little weird cubby, and yeah. How did you like it, Sam? After I'm just sitting here just so sad about it.
Just to start with, I pulled up the a picture I took of the pre-refresh Corsair a couple of years ago. So when the plug-in hybrid first came out, and I tested it, and so part of the changes that they made to for this year is they went to a bigger center touchscreen. Like I said, they went from a 10-inch to a 13-inch center touchscreen. Previously, the stop-start button was actually up on top of the dash next to the center touchscreen, so it was very clearly visible.
boop. Just
It was
just a
right
big
there.
boop.
But because they made that screen wider, now there was no room there for the button. So they moved the button down below. The piano keys for shifting are exactly the same as they were. They haven't actually,
But they
haven't actually
stick
changed.
out. I feel like they stick out far enough where you're like, oh, okay, those weren't the issue.
Yeah,
it was
they
just
were
like,
fine,
it
but
just
you're right,
felt
it
like
was-
the start button is just shoved back up in there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Like
And I
someone's
was
trying to
noticing
hide
the
it
same
like
thing.
quarter from you. That's what.
Yeah. And I did notice the same thing. The other thing that they changed in the interior is that the part of the console that kind of sticks out from there just below the shifter buttons,
Yeah.
it's now about probably about less than half as long. So it doesn't stick out nearly as far as it did before. And before you had the physical controls for the climate control all on there. You didn't have this one little strip. So there was, buttons for heated and cooled seats, and the, where you wanted the direction of the air to flow, and the volume and tuning buttons were also on this little console thing. And they basically, what they did was, when they went to the larger touchscreen, it now has, along the bottom of that, there is a strip for the climate controls that is always displayed. So whether you're using CarPlay or Android Auto or the regular infotainment system, those controls are always there. It's now touch controls, but they're at least always visible. They never disappear depending on whatever mode you go in. So they're at least consistent, even though you still can't do them by feel. And they got rid of that and made that, this little cantilevered console thing, they shrunk it down and just have that one strip with that, like you say, that single piece of plastic on there.
You push one part and the other part, like it's like a seesaw if you push the edges.
Yeah. Well, did you ever use the BlackBerry Storm?
Oh my gosh.
No.
It's not as bad as that, but kind of like that, because the Storm was BlackBerry's response to the iPhone when the iPhone came out. It was their first touchscreen phone, and they wanted to keep, the tactile feel of the keyboard. So what they had was they had four switches underneath the touchscreen. So when you pressed on the touchscreen, it clicked. But you had the whole screen was literally pivoting and clicking when you touched it. It was terrible. It was just atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
This is not that bad, but it's still not great. Yeah, I mean, overall, it's fine. I think at $39,000, $40,000, the Corsair is okay.
I think okay is a pretty good review of the Corsair.
I mean, it's I think it's competitive
fine.
with it's competitive with like the Lexus NX and stuff like that. They're in a similar price range. At 65,000, which is what mine was priced at.
Yeah, mine was priced the same thing.
Yeah,
Let me double check.
Who knew?
It's pretty steep. I mean, the Grand Touring, which is the plug-in hybrid, starts at like 53 or something. Yeah, 53.
Yeah, mine started at 53. I got 65,970.
Yeah, there's that
total.
$8,000 Collection 3 option package that includes Blue Cruise and a whole bunch of other stuff. Also, the heads-up display. If you're gonna have Blue Cruise in this thing, having the heads-up display is actually really good. Because I talked about my issues with Blue Cruise when I drove the
It doesn't make any noises. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
It makes no noises. It's too quiet.
And the what it shows in the instrument cluster is still that predominantly blue color.
Yeah,
theme.
everything's blue. It's just a little, and like the picture is like there's a picture of a steering wheel with your hands on it. That's when you come to get your hands on it, and then there's a picture of a steering wheel without your hands on it, but also like a glue, like a phantasm, like some sort of something glowing behind.
You guys can see the waving hands that's going along with Robbie's description.
It looks like it looks like there's walls on other side. It's like a graphic that kind of shows like when looking down at the car as it's driving down the road from you're above and behind the car. looking down at it, and it's like there's walls with spots on them on either side of the road, and it's flowing past, and you're driving past these walls
like blue flowy flames.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's not enough. There should be a bing or a boop or something.
But the heads-up display actually gives you a much better view, and it's still blue, but you see, the steering wheel when you're in hands-free mode, the steering wheel is larger. And when it wants you to go hands-on, it actually moves to a different location and shows you with your hands on the wheel. It moves from the side into the center, to say, hey, put your hands on the wheel. So it's right there in front of you, so you don't even have to look down at the cluster. So I actually thought that worked fairly well.
Except if you wear polarized sunglasses.
Yes, that is true.
Which both of my sunglasses are polarized. So yeah. I'm always like turning my head. I'm like, how fast am I going?
Yeah.
It's like, what's the speed? Speeding it?
That $8,000 option package also gets you heated rear seat, and auto air refresh, and the Revell 14 speaker audio system, which sounds good. It's fine. It's $65,000. It's too expensive.
If for $65,000, just pay the $3,000 more or so and get the base trim level GLC, because you're just going to have a much nicer car all the way, across the board. It's
in all regards.
In all regards, just pay a little bit extra and get the GLC. Sorry.
But
again, I like the Aviator. The Aviators are the last time I drove it. I don't know how much they've changed. Who knows what they've done to it? And I like the Navigator. I like both of those. It's just I'm like, hey, we got the Corsair. I'm like, oh, cool. I have to do a really long drive. This will be a nice car. And the whole time I was like, oh,
this isn't what I wanted. This is not expectations. Not met.
This is not my expectations.
But at least with the Corsair, you do have all-wheel drive, which you don't have with the Escape plug-in hybrid. So the Escape plug-in hybrid is front drive only.
True.
And it's like 200
this is
horsepower.
all-wheel drive PHEV. Wait, so they could make an all-wheel drive Maverick PHEV?
Absolutely.
Come on. Yeah. I mean, they're not going.
But then it would be really way too expensive because
they can't figure out how to make enough.
$6,000,
yeah. It would probably be a $45,000 Maverick at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you're defeating the purpose of being a Maverick in the first.
And then at that point, might as well just get a Tacoma.
Yeah. Taco.
So that's the 2023 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring plug-in hybrid all-wheel drive.
It's nice.
Full
it's
title.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Lincoln. Maybe next.
Smartphones have gotten way more expensive over the past decade, and all it takes is one impact on a hard floor to make you wish you had spent a few bucks to put a case on it. Going online without ExpressVPN is like not having a case for your phone, and it only costs a few dollars a month. Nicole, Robbie, and I travel a lot for our work, and we spend a lot of time in hotels, coffee shops, airplanes, and of course the Delta Sky Club. Connecting to the Wi-Fi in any public places with shared Wi-Fi puts your data at risk because bad actors could be intercepting what you send and using it to steal from you. It only takes some cheap hardware to intercept Wi-Fi data, and even a smart preteen can do it. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per victim selling personal information on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops the bad guys by creating a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. ExpressVPN uses state-of-the-art encryption that would take a supercomputer up to 1 billion years to crack. I have ExpressVPN on all my devices, including a MacBook Pro, Windows laptops and desktops, and Android and iOS phones and laptops, or tablets. When I want to be secure, I just launch the app, click once to connect, and my data is secure. As I said, I travel a lot for my work, and I have to connect to countless public Wi-Fi networks in many countries. I have ExpressVPN on all my connected devices so that whoever else is on the same network can't see any of my data. That's important because I often have to check banks, credit card accounts, and transmit client data that might be sensitive, as well as filing articles on news that might be under embargo. ExpressVPN protects all of it, and I've been paying for my own account for years. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. That's expressvpn.com/wheelbearings, and you can get an extra 4 months for free. expressvpn.com/wheelbearings.
One of the hardest parts of getting older is feeling like something's off in your body, but not knowing exactly what. It's not just aging, it's often your hormones too. When they fall out of balance, everything feels off. But here's the good news. This doesn't have to be the story of your next chapter. Hormone Harmony by Happy Mammoth is an herbal formula made with science-backed ingredients designed to fine-tune your hormones by balancing estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, and even stress hormones like cortisol. It helps with common issues such as hot flashes, poor sleep, low energy, bloating, and more. With over 40,000 reviews and a bottle sold every 24 seconds, the results speak for themselves. A survey found 86% of women lost weight, 77% saw an improved mood, and 100% felt like themselves again. Start your next chapter feeling balanced and in control. For a limited time, get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com with code NEXTCHAPTER at checkout. Visit happymammoth.com today and get your old self back naturally.
Everything is better on a boat, and your vacation is no exception. This year, experience the world's most beautiful destinations aboard your own private yacht charter with the Moorings. Our fleet of modern, custom-designed yachts is just one reason we were recently voted Best Caribbean Yacht Charter Company by readers of Caribbean Journal. So when you next explore the Virgin Islands, the Bahamas, or elsewhere, don't accept anything less than the Moorings. Your vacation time is precious, so make the most of your freedom on the water. Book your perfect charter at moorings.com. Nothing less than the Moorings.
Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. We've updated the Wheel Bearings merch store, and now there's a whole bunch of new choices, new colors, new styles, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats, mugs, travel mugs, stickers, aprons, tote bags, you name it. You can get your Wheel Bearings merch at shop.wheelbearings.media. Go check it out. That's shop.wheelbearings.media. How about you, Nicole? What'd you drive?
I had a car that was twice as expensive as your little Lincoln, and it was 9 bazillion times nicer. It is. I was driving.
Double the price, 9 bazillion times better.
Right? So holy value. It was the 2023 Mercedes-Benz EQS 580 SUV exclusive. That's the whole title.
Ooh.
Because fancy car needs lots of words to describe it.
Yeah.
I did not have a Monroney for this, so I kind of built it, I think. And it is $129,100. So to the Lincolns, would you take 2 Lincolns or one of these?
I would take one of those.
Yeah, I'd probably take,
Why
even
would I
though I
want
haven't
two
driven one, I'd probably take one EQS.
Like, you know what? The Corsair is like Panera. Like, you go to Panera and you get there and you're like, oh, this is a disappointing sandwich. I should have gone a little bit more money and got a better sandwich somewhere else.
So instead of Panera, if the Corsair's Panera, then this is your local handcrafted artisan sandwich with grain, locally sourced bread.
This is the Zingerman's to Panera.
Like, what do you want?
To Panera. So there we go. So anybody.
What do you want? And then just they slice the meat. What kind of cheese you want? All right, let me slice some cheese.
Slice of cheese. They have like.
Can I get an extra slice of that cheese
mustard
on there?
They're like, yeah, sure. Plop.
Can I get a slice of the provolone and a slice of the Swiss?
Of each.
Sure, man.
And the manchego. Give me a slice of manchego too.
And the guy knows you. Like. Or the guy or the gal knows you, and they're like, hey, how's it going? It's like a 15-minute sandwich.
So Mercedes-Benz is the fancy sandwich of SUVs.
Yeah, it's a 15-minute sandwich experience of an SUV.
Fancy sandwich of SUVs.
I'm sure Rob Moran will appreciate that.
Yep, you're welcome, Rob. We worked really hard on that. I like fancy sandwiches, so it's all
the fancy
good.
Sandwich of SUVs. There's our title.
The fancy sandwich. So there's a variety of ranges depending on the trim you get, because there's like front-wheel drive and there's the all-wheel drive. This has the dual electric motors with all-wheel drive. So it's really weird, and I couldn't quite figure this out, to be honest. When you go online, the specs say it has 285 miles of range. It's estimating, like it shows you how far it thinks it has less to go, and it keeps giving me over 300 in the car. So I'm not sure where
That's
the official.
Germans for you.
Yeah, I'm like, so the official says 285, and I like when I sat down in the car, I thought, wait a minute, am I reading this wrong? Nope, official says 285, but it's got up to as high as I think when I haven't had it fully charged. Like when I got it, it wasn't fully charged, and I haven't gotten it all the way up there yet. It was like 312 or something, and I'm like, well, that's a bit more than what they say. So we'll see.
I have good luck with the Germans and their range. It's always higher.
Yeah, that's what I'm figuring. It's just because because it does do that thing where like if you're blasting the AC, it lets you know, okay, you're using everything, you're gonna reduce your range, and it gives you the estimate so you can see how you're using your vehicles impacting your range, which I always think is really cool. It sort of gamifies driving. So 536 horsepower, 633 pound-feet of torque. You push the pedal. I can't call it accelerator. That just sounds too darn fancy. The go pedal. You push. I like that. You push the go pedal in your fancy sandwich and it moves. It really, really goes really fast. There's no hesitation, but it has the combination of being quiet because it's an electric vehicle and EVs don't have the noise of an engine when you accelerate, but also it's got that well-mannered thing that comes from a true luxury brand like this. This is a $130,000 car. They're not messing around. So even though you go aggressively, there's none of that it's not harsh. It's very well-mannered. It feels very controlled. It is a lovely car to drive. It is really, really nice to drive. And I don't know if Robbie, you would like this better or worse, but like the seats, also very adjustable seats, and there's massage.
No, the Mercedes seats are the best.
There's
I've driven to LA and back a few times, like during lockdown when I had to go down to Mercedes events. They would just give me a Mercedes to drive down there, and it was always a delightful experience.
The seats, and here's the thing, you guys, the headrest in this, there's this traditional hard headrest, but on top of it, there's a little pillow. It's literally a little pillow. You can unvelcro it and take it off if you want. It is so darn comfortable. You put your head back, and I think I can't actually adjust this so my head's back because I'm just gonna go sleep. It is so comfortable. And you have it on the driver and passenger side, and in back, the outboard rear passengers also get their own little version of this. I've determined I don't think it's quite as floofy as the ones in front, but still you get your own little pillow. My only objection to this pillow is that it's got sort of like a suede finish to it. It's not leather. So it kind of grabs your hair a little bit. So as you turn your head, it keeps grabbing your hair. And I feel like after a road trip, my hair would be kind of like a mess.
Like a little rat's nest, like every time you look around. It's just swirling and swirling and swirling and swirling your hair.
I kept wanting to straighten my hair. And I thought, this is just me. And then my daughter, who's 19, was riding. She's like, this keeps messing up my hair. And I'm like, oh, she thinks the same thing. So, but oh my gosh, are these seats comfy? So comfy. And again, I drove the sedan and the Mercedes sedan, and the lights, the ambient lighting inside of the Mercedes, it never fails to crack me up that there are things you may not do while you are driving because it is distracting. But if you would like to set the lighting to go through a rainbow of colors constantly and blink and do this, you can do that, and that's not distracting, apparently. To have it look like you're inside of a nightclub as you're driving along, like your whole Daft Punk thing, the inside of this with that light would look absolutely appropriate at one of your concerts.
I turn that stuff all the way up and I just drive around. Within 5 seconds, I completely forget it's on.
Well, I notice it. I always notice it. I don't. There's certain.
But I feel like people driving by are like, "What's going on in that guy's car?"
Oh, yeah, they're like, "What the heck is this guy doing?" Right? It is really cool. My daughter loves to play it. So whatever ambient lighting is available, she puts it to the most in-your-face version of it that you can conceivably come up with. And it's hilarious. She did that. My husband sat down in the car last night. He's like, whoa, what is going on? I'm like, that would be her fault. And it also has what they call the MBUX Hyperscreen, which is 56 inches of screen. Your entire dashboard pretty much is screen. So you have a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster, a 17.7-inch infotainment screen, and then a 12.3-inch passenger screen that does, I don't think all, but a lot of the functions you get on your infotainment. So it's just screen everywhere. And the middle one, it is gigantic. It looks cool, but again, it's a lot. It's a lot of
that screen is too much. To me, I just like the regular, like their little portrait screen that you can get.
You think it's too much?
No one ever cares about that. I show everyone the passenger screen. No passenger has ever been excited to use it. When I was in, when I did the EQS SUV drive with, and Tim Stevens was driving, I was in the passenger side, and I watched some of Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I'm like, well, I guess I could do that. But then at the same time, I could just do that on my iPad.
Right. Well, you know what? It was interesting. My daughter had a really good point, and I don't know that this is something that And this isn't a Mercedes-Benz thing. This is anybody who has a screen on the passenger side. So when your airbags, like the thing, like if you're too close to the steering wheel, it's not good to be too close, because they always tell the driver, like, the airbag could go off and it's time to go off at a certain thing. You shouldn't be too close. Like, you shouldn't put your feet on a dashboard, because if the airbag goes off and the passenger's riding with their feet on the dashboard, the airbag's going to go off and hurt your feet. When she goes to use the infotainment screen, she's right, in that she tends not to be laying all the way back. She leans forward on her knees to touch the screen. So you are now putting your face really, really close to the screen. So if something happened, I feel like you're not that the screen's going to get, but there's an airbag in there. And I know the airbag is designed to go off and not cause the screen to hit you or anything, but you are very, very close to that dashboard. And until she said that, I never really thought about it. Like, you were, because she said, like, if she's watching something, she'll watch it and she leans back. But if she's messing around with stuff, she leans in close to the screen. And I wonder about that. And again, not a Mercedes-Benz knock, just a, hey, I wonder.
I know that the Mercedes, if you slam on that brake, it shoves you. It just grabs you and yanks you back.
Is it maybe that's it? Maybe it's going to immediately.
Those seatbelts will just like.
Seatbelt pretensioners will yank you back.
There are things that the Mercedes does that is like insane. Like, one of them is that. The other one is if you get out of your lane, it's like no, and it yanks you back into your lane.
You will get back in the right lane. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's set to do that. But it was something that had never occurred to me until my teenage daughter said, I'm sitting actually really close to this as I'm playing around selecting things. That can't be safe. And I thought, gosh, I don't know. Is it? Like, it's a question. I wonder now. I need a Mercedes-Benz person to answer that question.
Well, you know what?
With
do you remember when we were kids and our parents told us, don't sit so close to the TV, you'll go blind?
Right.
Well, now it should just be, don't sit so close to the screen, you'll get killed. You'll die.
Like, right?
Your hand will get smashed into your face.
Like, don't you wonder now? Like, I never thought about it until she said it. And now, because like I know the Jeep, the Grand Wagoneer has one over there too. I feel like there's a couple different. So it's not like
Ferrari has one.
Yeah, so it's not like a Mercedes-Benz.
Porsche's got it in the Taycan.
Oh yeah, Porsche has it in the Taycan.
So I wonder what kind of
the problem is the testing is that the people just get bored with them after about 5 minutes and they never use it again. I think that's
true. So it's not an issue. It's like, we're not using it. Don't worry, you're not going to get injured in an accident because you're never going to use it again after the first 10 minutes.
It's there. It does stuff.
It does stuff.
And then
so that was my thought about that screen and that it's gigantic. I do feel like it's a bit much for the screen. But as far as driving it, I mean, it is a wonderful car to drive. It looks so much like a luxury car. The second you open the door, and even before you open the door, like the handles pop out, it actually says Mercedes-Benz is like embossed onto the top part of the handles. At night, when you open the doors, the puddle lamps, they're like dual puddle lamps. One side, like the side on the outside of the door, has the traditional star. Do they call it a tri-star? I'm suddenly drawing a blank. The star, the
Mercedes-Benz star, I think.
Just Mercedes-Benz star. But then they have, when you look at it from the inside, it has the little star pattern, the same one that makes up the grille. It's not just a badge on the grille. There's actually, imagine the entire grille would be like a honeycomb pattern on a traditional car. It's just a million little star, like not with a circle around it, just little star.
So I get really nerdy and I go say, my God, it's full of stars.
It's full of stars. It's full of stars. The grill is full of stars. The puddle lamp is full of stars. And even on the inside, there's this natural wood that is on the center console, and it's actually on the front and the rear doors. And in that are embedded the same pattern of these tiny little metal stars. And you can kind of sort of feel them with your fingers, like they're just ever so slightly, there's like some tactile thing going on there. But like, these are all unbelievable details. Like, you sit down and you think, holy cow, this is a luxury car, which I think when you sit down in a car that costs over $100,000, there should be no doubt in your mind before you've even hit the start button that you were sitting in a $100,000 car. If you can't tell, then they've done it wrong. There.
I think that sounds about right.
So I like this. I really like this. I mean, it's expensive, but it does exactly what a car at this price point should do. And it's an electric vehicle, so it gets you something that's an EV. Oh, and one of the cutest little things. Do you know how you fill the windshield washer fluid in this?
Little thing pops out.
There's a little thing that pops out. Like, it looks kind of like it should be like an EV charging port, but it's actually a little tiny port in the front. It pops open.
It's on the right front fender, right?
On the driver's side front fender.
Oh, the driver's side or the passenger side?
I think it was driver's side. Driver's side. and it pops open. But what's really funny is it pops open. It has a little image, like if your washer fluid's out, the image you get on your instrument cluster, it has that inside that little thing. So if you look in it and you're wondering, like, what is this for? It has that same little washer fluid logo. But it kind of, when you look at it, makes me think of the little pod in your washing machine for fabric softener.
Oh, yeah,
Don't put fabric softener in there. That's not what I'm saying. But that's exactly what it looks like.
But you could. I mean, it would be bad.
It would be bad in 100 ways. Not recommending this. But yeah, so it just like pops out. You put in your windshield washer fluid and pop it back closed. It's really kind of cute. I thought that was neat. So that's my thoughts on the very fancy 2023 Mercedes-Benz EQS 580 SUV exclusive. Exclusive.
So
I don't know why it's French.
before we continue on, I remembered one other thing about the Corsair that I think justifies
and
its
we're back
existence.
to the Panera sandwich.
The Corsair, or at least the one I had a spare tire, which is extremely rare in a plug-in vehicle.
Oh. So is that
in
one
the back,
point in
when
the
you lift up
Corsair's favor?
when you go in the cargo area and you lift up the thing there on the floor,
Yes.
there was a spare tire there. I was shocked.
Ooh.
I did not
that's a
expect to
good
see a
thing.
spare.
That's
So,
a good thing.
Yeah, that is actually quite rare, in smaller plug-in vehicles. Usually all you get is an inflator kit, and this one had an actual spare tire. It was a mini spare, but it was a spare nonetheless. So good on Lincoln for that.
Yes. Good job, Lincoln. Spare tire. Woohoo.
All right.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.
Have you ever killed a houseplant before? Don't worry, you are not alone. But what if I told you you're not destined to be a plant killer? What if I told you you could not only fill your home with gorgeous, luscious, happy, thriving plants, but live a happier life through caring for them? Hey, new plant friend, my name is Maria. I am a former plant killer turned happy plant lady and host of the Growing Joy with Plants podcast, where it is my life's mission to help you grow happy plants and thrive alongside them. Because when you learn to care for plants, you really learn to slow down, connect with nature, and nurture yourself too. Each week, I share expert tips, inspiring conversations, and soulful planty wisdom to help you grow a greener, happier life. So if you're ready to turn your plant struggles into plant joy and get the green thumb you've always dreamed of, search Growing Joy with Plants wherever you listen to podcasts and hit subscribe. That's Growing Joy with Plants podcast. Let's grow some joy together.
Let's go into a few of the stories from this week. First up, Rolls-Royce. They have launched the Spectre, their first electric vehicle. Did either of you get invited on the drive program for that?
No, I did not drive the Spectre.
I got invited. I couldn't go.
It's generally gotten pretty rave reviews. But as is usual with anything that is, limited in availability, and in some degree of high demand, to the extent that a $400,000 car can, have a lot of demand.
Gosh, is that what it starts at? 400,000?
Yeah,
Ooh, baby.
something like that. There are, of course, scalpers who buy these things and turn around and sell them to somebody else with even more money for, some ridiculous premium. Rolls-Royce is having none of that. And they have told people that if you buy a Spectre and you immediately turn around and sell it, you will never, ever, ever, as long as you live, be able to buy another new Rolls-Royce.
Unless you buy it scalped.
Well, yeah. But I mean, you will never be able to buy one from Rolls-Royce. You'll never be able to buy a brand new Rolls-Royce from Rolls-Royce. We will never sell you one again. And I don't know about you, but I like that idea. I think more automakers ought to do that.
No more Rolls-Royce for you.
Yeah, I think it's not like it's a car that's a mass market car that's out there in tons and tons of units and people want it. And if people are just going to take advantage of the market to try and, make a buck that way, that stinks for people who are just willing to buy it and who maybe wanted to customize it because Rolls-Royce can do whatever kind of customization your heart desires. You know, if they just buy one, and now the person who really wanted just a regular person with $400,000 couldn't customize it, or $450 couldn't customize it the way they wanted. Yeah, I think that's a cool move. So it gives people who really want to buy it and keep it for themselves a better chance of getting it.
Yeah. All right. Next, battery plants. They're going up all over the place. The list that we have at where I work, Guidehouse, we've got about 30 battery plants that should be operational in North America by the end of 2026 on that list. And there's at least one of them that neighbors don't want it. They don't want one there. That is the plant that Ford is building in Marshall, Michigan, which is in near the Indiana border and over towards like southwest Michigan. And it's a small town, rural area, and there are some neighbors in the vicinity that do not want a factory with 5,000 employees in their area. They apparently don't want the jobs, and they are protesting and they're pushing back. They're trying to get a judge to block the factory. 2,500 employees, not 5,000, only 2,500.
Oh,
okay.
Well, that's different. That's a horse of a different color.
Yeah. Fred Chapman has a message for Ford, which is planning to build a sprawling factory on the outskirts of his town to make batteries for electric cars. We don't need jobs, he says.
I mean, Fred doesn't need a job, apparently.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's not running for anything, because that is not a good playing for your platform. We don't need jobs.
Fred doesn't need a job. Hey, I don't need a job. I don't know about the rest of you.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is what happens sometimes when automakers decide they want to go put factories in rural areas where people might be less inclined to want to unionize.
And it looks like too, there's like, they originally had like the parcel of land, it was 750 acres that's been available since like the 60s. So it's been empty probably for a really, really long. And then nobody would get it, but they need more. So that they actually got 2 adjacent parcels. They bought a ton of land. It's a big spot. 1,100 acres.
Yeah, it's and that's not as big as the land that they bought in Tennessee for their factories down there, because they have both a battery plant and an new assembly plant going up in this place east of Memphis, Stanton, Tennessee. So yeah, it's a big investment that Ford's making to build LFP batteries for their future vehicles, and the locals don't want it there. And that's there's also another one, and I think part of this has to do with the fact that even though Ford owns this plant outright, they are licensing some technology for LFP batteries from CATL, the Chinese battery manufacturer, because originally Ford was planning to do this plant in Virginia, and Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, said, nope, we don't want this plant in Virginia, because there was this little slight connection with CATL. Said we don't want any Chinese companies involved in anything in Virginia. So Ford said, okay, fine, we'll go to Michigan. And now they're getting pushed back from the locals there too.
Michigan's like, no, thank you.
Well, the state of Michigan's giving Ford a bunch of money, as most states usually do whenever a company builds a big factory. But they, just some of the locals are pushing back against this.
Oh, I'm reading all the way down to the bottom, and this guy Chapman, we don't need jobs. He lives across the street from where they're going to be building it.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want that directly across the street, and they tried to buy it, and he doesn't want to sell. So.
Yeah.
That's a stinker. But when you buy land across the street from a commercially zoned thing, someday they might build something.
Yeah, I think I think this is I don't think this is ultimately going to get stopped, but it's weird, especially when it's not that it hasn't been that often that new factories like this got built until relatively recently, and now we've got a whole slew of these battery plants going up, and I think we should. I don't think we should be trying to stop these things.
No, they need to be built. So they got to go somewhere.
Like housing, people got to live somewhere.
And it is a commercial zone, so okay.
All right,
but
people need jobs and they need houses. Womp.
So Caterham, you guys know who Caterham is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Little British car
They
maker.
make that funny little
Yes.
thing.
They back in the
Until
early
yesterday.
1970s, back in the early 70s, they bought when Lotus stopped building the 7, the sports car. Caterham bought the tooling from Lotus, and they have continued to build the 7 in various incarnations ever since for 50 years now. And now, after 50 years of building the 7, they finally have a new car that they unveiled.
Every 50 years, we're going to get a new Caterham car.
As part of the Goodwood Festival of Speed. It's electric. It's nothing like the Caterham 7. It's about the same size as a Porsche Boxster, but it has 3 seats, 268 horsepower, and has 249-mile electric range.
It looks fantastic.
It does look beautiful.
It doesn't look anything like a 7, though.
It
No.
does not. It's
But
going to be
a
very
pretty
expensive
car. It's pretty.
because they're a tiny company. But it looks
Uh,
fantastic. It just cut the top off. Boom, and you got the new Mazda Miata EV.
There you go. Yeah, they said price less than 80,000 pounds, which is about $103,000 US right now.
So,
Okay.
79,000 pounds. But it looks fantastic.
All right. Chevy, their 3-row crossover, the Traverse. The current one has been around since about 2018 or 2017, and there's a new one coming early next year. As we record this, it's Thursday. It's going to be officially unveiled on Monday when the show will be published. And they've got a new 3rd generation Traverse. It's all new. Looks quite different from the first 2 generations of Traverse. What do you think?
Silence.
It's fine.
It's a Traverse.
All the Chevy's SUVs look essentially just everyone. We made the Blazer. Everything's going to look like the Blazer.
Yeah.
Is sort of the deal, which is fine because I like the way the Blazer looks. It looks fine. I don't see any, 3-row people.
It's a lot chunkier looking than before. I mean, it's basically the same size.
But
but
the Traverse is like the car that you forget was made. I forgot about the Traverse. I'll forget about a Traverse 3 seconds after we stop talking about the Traverse. I don't know why. It's just oh yeah, the Traverse. Oh yeah,
it's a solid little SUV.
It's pretty big, actually.
SUV. I know. I'm like, those are the wrong word choice. I feel like it's a solid large SUV.
Yeah, I was looking up the sales for this segment. The kind of upper mid-size, large 3-row crossover segment, and in 2010, which is about a year and a half after the Traverse was launched, the original Traverse was launched. It was about 380,000 units in the US. And, that's for mainstream brands. This isn't, doesn't include the premium versions. And over the last several years, it's been over 1 million. So, this is a market that's grown a lot. It's got a bunch of new competitors like the Hyundai Palisade and the Kia Telluride and, upcoming the Kia EV9 and the Explorer, of course, and various others. And this is a big segment. And, so this new Traverse is, it looks a lot more truckish than before.
It's a bit more it's big burlier. It's more, it's butch. Burly. It's more butch than the previous Traverse. That's
the butch Traverse.
It's the butch Traverse. But
that's kind of a nice thing though, because so many the big SUVs, they're going towards trying to make them not look butch. It's either, you know what I mean? They're trying to do this sort of sleeker kind of thing.
They're doing these more rugged trim levels of a lot of them.
Yes, they do have the butch
you got
trim.
the Pathfinder Rock Creek edition,
right?
And the Explorer Timberline, and the Telluride has one. I forget what it's called now, but they're all doing these off-roadish versions. And so new for this year for the Traverse is a Z71 trim, which has all-terrain tires and different dampers and dual clutch, all-wheel drive system. That should give a little better
That's
traction.
Gonna be so dope in the Costco parking lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm gonna drive over this little cement stopper.
Bump
Yeah,
right over it. No
one
hesitation.
can stop me.
And then the interior, I think, is a big improvement over the current.
Yeah,
Traverse.
interior's nice. You can like there's you can see where the start-stop stuff is.
Yeah. It looks a lot like the Blazer EV and the Equinox EV, but with rectangular vents instead of circular vents like you have on the Blazer, and the same 17.7-inch center touchscreen. So it's the same size center infotainment screen as on that hyperscreen Mercedes.
Hyper screen.
It'll be a little bit less expensive. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I feel
I don't know. Have you looked at the price
cheaper.
of the Silverado EV?
He was going to come in $128 cheaper.
Yeah. So anyway, we don't know pricing yet. It's going to go on sale early in the new year. One other big change is powertrain. The V6, the 3.6 liter V6 is gone, and the 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo is also gone, and now the only engine is a 2.5 liter turbo, which is new, which I'm pretty sure is a slightly downsized version of the 2.7 liter that they have in the Silverado and the Canyon and Colorado and a bunch of other vehicles. And it's 315 horsepower and 317 foot-pounds of torque. So should have decent performance.
Yeah.
And they'll also have Super Cruise available in here. So should be pretty good. It goes on sale early 2024.
So soon, not that far away, early 2024. Yep. It's already the middle of 2023. So
yeah. But
you and all your friends can go on a trip.
You and all your friends.
To Costco.
You might go further.
We talked a minute ago about battery plants, all these new battery plants going up. But apparently some automakers are having trouble selling the EVs that they have now, which is not good.
Dun, dun, dun.
They're apparently starting to pile up on dealer lots. So if you were thinking about buying an EV, you might actually be able to get a decent deal on one now. You might actually be able to negotiate, and
you're not going to get ripped off.
If that's and it's because it's funny because people have been being ripped off for a while now, or just having these huge markups for such a long time. Yeah. They're so used to either you have to wait or you're going to pay a heck of a lot more than what the sticker says. It would be nice for some people to not have to face that problem for a little while.
Yeah. There's apparently a lot of Mach-E's and F-150s on lots right now.
No, I thought there was a huge wait for F-150s. I thought it was
there was until they start jacking the price up.
And now all of a sudden,
supply and demand.
Yep.
Now they're like, oh no. They're like, well, people will pay for this, so we'll just raise the price. And you're just like, they're only going to pay for this for so long, man.
So maybe that $129,000 Mercedes that I have right now could actually you could have it for a bargain price of like $120,000.
Yeah.
Or you can get a $7,000 discount on a Toyota BZ4X or Subaru Solterra.
What Robbie said.
Mach-E, man. The Mach-E's a good car.
The Mach-E I would buy. I buy the F-150 and I buy the Mach-E. I actually really like both of those. Two totally different vehicles, totally different use cases, but I would buy either one.
2023 Mercedes EQS 450 4MATIC, MSRP $118,000, $7,500 Mercedes incentive, $4,500 additional incentive, $4,000 dealer contributions.
Ooh.
$3,000.
Did you just randomly Google a dealership to see?
No, this is in the Jalopnik story. It is down.
It's in there.
Yeah, if you scroll down, it's there. So,
oh my gosh!
So you can get a deal on an EQS. I don't know about the SUV.
Look at that.
This looks like it's actually the
75, 45,
the sedan,
4,000, 3,000. Yeah, I think that's the sedan.
You want the SUV. I mean, I prefer sedans over SUVs, but when it comes to the EQS, the SUV is better because the sedan, the rear headroom is not great. You're better off with the SUV.
The SUV is really roomy. It's fantastic.
Yeah, you're better off with that SUV.
So that's like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16,000. Is that like $16,000, $17,000 off?
That's what it looks like to me.
Okay, I was trying to do math, and I'm like, wow.
So some pretty hefty discounts on some EVs. Not all of them.
Right.
But and then Tesla has slashed the prices on the Model 3 and the Model Y multiple times this year. Cut them by upwards of 20% from where they were at the beginning of the year. This is part of why you're starting to see inventories build up and sales starting to lag on some of the competitors, because the competitors have not dropped prices for the most part, have not cut prices in the way that Tesla has, and so instead they're just going back to the traditional discounting method the way they used to do. So with more EVs coming to market, I think it's going to be a little more affordable to get them.
Everything's coming up Millhouse.
Yep. Another EV that should be more affordable next year in 2024 is the Kia EV9, which we've talked about. It goes on sale later this year. Initially, the EV9 is going to be coming to us from South Korea, which means that it will not be eligible for the $7,500 federal tax credit unless you find a way to get that through a lease. But just this morning, Kia announced that they are spending $200 million to expand their West Point, Georgia assembly plant to add production of the EV9 in Georgia, starting in the second quarter of next year. So by next summer, you will be able to get U.S. built EV9s that will be eligible for the tax credit.
Dun dun dun.
Yay.
Yeah. And if the EV9's a little bit too big for you, how about an Ioniq 5N?
Dun dun dun. It looks fan.
That's all?
Fantastic. Sorry, the dog came up to me and interrupted my.
Robbie lost his train of thought.
The dog required pets suddenly.
It's debuted at the Goodwood Festival of Speed, setting a new benchmark for high performance EVs and driving fun. I love reading the titles they give press releases. They're such a
it's so crazy. So they've been talking about the Ioniq 5N for a while, and I think they're going to do an Ioniq 6N as well. 641 horsepower from this one, so it's faster than the EV, or more powerful than the EV6 GT or the Genesis GV60 Performance, and it has something that those two cars do not have, which is simulated 8-speed DCT.
Ooh.
Which I don't know why you would want this,
but it has it.
It's such a weird thing. Like, okay, sure, you got it.
Like,
okay,
all right, fine. If that's what you felt like we needed, okay.
So I guess there will just be a little blip in the torque delivery as you're accelerating.
Like,
so every once in a while you'll get a little dip in the torque delivery, just
for kicks.
Yeah, just to make it.
So
feel...
I'm looking at. Is this a thing? I guess it's a thing. The 3 pillars of N performance, which are corner rascal, racetrack capability, and everyday sports car. Corner rascal.
Corner Rascal is the name of my country band, so I'm filing a suit against.
All I can think of is that rascally rabbit. It makes me think of Bugs Bunny cartoons of old. Corner Rascal.
Corner Rascal.
Yeah. Among the many exclusive performance features are the N battery preconditioning, which will warm up the battery before you go on the track.
Mm-hmm.
N race, N pedal, N brake regen, N drift optimizer, N torque distribution, N launch control, N grin boost.
Grin boost.
The and
Lord.
Active Sound Plus, which that makes the whole thing sound like it's got the Hyundai 2-liter turbo from the I think from the Elantra N, and then the DCT, with the N E-shift. I don't know. I think some of this is a little silly.
Oh, there's a lot of N.
It's a lot of silly, and I am very excited about this car. It's all insanely city, and I'll probably use, if once we get it in for review, I'll use all those things for about 10 minutes, and they'll be like, all right, it's enough of that. And drive it,
okay,
but for 10 minutes, I will be a child.
I'm a little disappointed that when I look at the colors, which all have lovely names, including something called Soltronic Orange Pearl, but there's no N anything. There's N gravity blue or anything. There's no N in any of the color names. They put an N on every single feature of that car, but not one of those color names comes with Atlas White Matte N, Gravity Gold and matte. Nope. Mm-mm.
But they do have that,
an opportunity.
that performance blue that is the signature color of the N brand.
But how cool would it have been if it had been performance blue and matte? And performance blue matte.
It might be getting a little bit too long of a name for a color.
Oh, because putting an N in front of every other single feature on the car was totally cool.
All right. Anything else on the Elantra or the Ioniq 5N?
No, I don't think so.
I want the Ioniq 5N. That's the only thing I got. That's all I got. I just want it. I want to be driving it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to call friends. I want them to come over. I want to put my dogs in the back. I want to take band things with it. I really like the Ioniq 5, and I know that the EV6 GT drove so much better than it. And then now there's this. And Road and Track did a drive with it, and they were like, "This is the best performing EV." And I was like, "What?"
Wow. That's
So I trust Brian. I trust Brian over at the old Road and Track.
Road and Track.
If Brian likes it, it's good enough for me. That's not. Get the Brian seal of approval.
I'll buy it.
All right. Well, I spent the day today with Magna. They did their summer tech day. And we spent the morning at Hollyoaks ORV Park north of Detroit, and then the afternoon at their tech center in Troy. And this morning we got to drive prototype electric Jeep Gladiator with Magna's E-Beam electric axles. So Magna has designed a solid axle with an integrated electric motor and gearbox on there. And they had two of these on the Gladiator, one in the front, one in the back. And we got to drive around on the ORV park in this electric Gladiator. And it was really good. It was really, really good.
I want to say something about the Gladiator, just completely off track, just to mess up everyone's day. Every time I see the Gladiator, I'm like, oh, is that the what was it called? Comanche. I'm like, oh. I saw Gladiator today. I'm like, oh, look, a Comanche. Oh, no, wait, no.
You keep wanting it to be a Comanche, or you think it looks like one?
It just the Comanche was the Jeep truck from the.
Yeah, I mean, it was based on the
that.
XJ Cherokee. It was an XJ Cherokee pickup back in the late '80s, and I mean, this doesn't look anything like a Comanche, but I think
it's
Comanche
just a truck.
Yeah,
technically it's a Jeep and it's a truck, so totally the same thing.
Yeah, in my brain, I saw it the other day, and I'm all, oh, Comanche. I'm like, no, Robbie, no. And to be honest,
wrong vehicle, Robbie.
No.
But one of the cool things about this, and this was a Magna prototype. They built it to demo their hardware that they've developed, and to show it off to automakers, try and sell it to them. And one of the cool features that they built into this is their E4 low system. So it's just software that simulates the effect of having four-wheel drive low, because there's no transfer case in this thing like you have on a regular Gladiator or Wrangler or any other off-roader. And what it does is it just changes the mapping between the accelerator pedal and what gets commanded to the motors. So it goes at really low speeds. But the nice thing about it is, even though with electric motors, the great thing about electric motors, you get that instant responsiveness. The bad thing about electric motors off-road is you get that instant responsiveness. So you get all that torque right away. And that's what happened when we were out in Utah, when I drove the Wrangler out there, when it slid sideways on that hill, because I was driving it in electric mode. And so, I got on the accelerator, and even though I didn't stomp on the accelerator or anything, it just gave it that instant shot of torque. And then the wheels slid sideways because I was on, I was on a slope, off to one side, and it just went sideways down the hill. And with this one, because it modulates, it makes it a lot easier to modulate that torque delivery with your foot. So you can be a lot more gentle with it when you're in conditions like that. And, we drove it around and drove it up, this, kind of a simulated version of the same thing, that had been built there. They had this hill that was paved over to make it as if it was a big rock in the desert, like the one we climbed with the Wrangler. And it's much easier to drive that way when you put it in that E4 low mode. So this is going to be one of the really interesting things about, getting electric off-roaders, is having that kind of capability.
That's sort of like the ability, like when you read the 4xe, you realize just how you have this direct, attachment to the road, where when you're driving an ICE vehicle, you're like, okay, unless you're driving with a manual transmission, there feels like there's like a little delay, and you're like, okay, let me see, okay, now I'm moving. All right, now, yeah.
and even when it moves, you're not getting all the torque at once. With an internal combustion engine, it builds up. So I think this will be better. It'll be a lot easier to drive. It is, of course, a fair bit heavier than a gas Gladiator. This thing was about, little bit. Yeah, it's about 6,500 pounds, I think they said, for the prototype. And I think that's about let's see, curb weight for a V6 Gladiator Sport starts at about 4,700 pounds. Rubicon's about 5,000 pounds, and this was so about 1,500 pounds more than a current gas Gladiator Rubicon. So it's a little bit heavier.
Rubicon.
But hopefully that'll get lighter.
Yeah.
We saw a bunch of.
Yeah, they just sort of built it.
Yeah. Yeah. They threw it together just to test it out. So they showed us a whole bunch of stuff, but one other thing I want to talk about is they demoed their alcohol detection system.
How's that work?
In the infrastructure bill, one of the things that was in there when that was passed a year and a half ago is a requirement that NHTSA implement a regulation, that all new vehicles will have to have a system that could detect a drunk driver and prevent them from starting the car. And so the system that Magna has come up with has got an air quality sensor that they've got right now for development purposes. It's mounted on the side of the steering column, and driver monitor system, the infrared cameras like we have for Blue Cruise and Super Cruise and things like that. And the air quality sensor, when you breathe in the vicinity of it, it will detect alcohol molecules in the air.
So it's a built-in breathalyzer.
It's a built-in breathalyzer.
But what if someone with you in the car is like really drunk?
So I asked about that.
Because I don't drink at all. Yeah. But I'm sober. I'm a designated driver for like everyone else, and so if everyone's super drunk, then I'm like, sorry guys, you got to walk.
Yeah,
everyone hold your breath.
So this is why they have the infrared driver camera. So they're using both. So even if it detects alcohol that might be from somebody else in the vehicle, it's also looking at your eyes and your face, your head position, and things like that. And it's looking at the responsiveness of your pupils and all this stuff, because there's all kinds of things that characterize when somebody is impaired. Also looking for things like drowsiness. Or any kind of if you've got having some sort of medical emergency, and so even if the air quality sensor detects over a certain percentage, if it detects clearly that you don't appear to be impaired, then it tries to avoid false positives that way by using the two sensors together.
All right. It also asks you if it knows you, and then you say, you don't know me. Then it's like, no, you're not allowed to go anywhere.
Yeah.
No. Do I know you? You're like, yeah, sure. You know me, car, whatever. It's fine. But if you reply, you don't know me.
Yeah.
It's over. Walking home.
So that's still in development, but it'll probably be coming in the next few years to your car. You'll have to breathe on your car to prove to it that you should be allowed to drive. You
had to breathe. Everyone remember to breathe.
Yeah. All right, let's answer a few listener questions. I know you've got to go pretty soon, Robbie.
I got a motor. I got to go drive a Lamborghini. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh wow, I feel so sorry for you. Whatever, Robbie.
Well, I also have like 3 things. I also have 2 more articles to write, but mostly I have to drive the Lamborghini.
I feel so sorry for you. Whatever. All I heard was I'm going off to drive a Lamborghini. So.
Lamborghini.
Right, are you taking off right now then?
No, like we can answer some reader questions.
Okay.
Or listener questions, not reader questions.
So one of our patrons, Steven, wrote to us and said, Wheel Bearings team, I've been a subscriber to the major print magazines for decades and a longtime listener of multiple automotive podcasts. I just wanted to say that Nicole's description of a muscle car as, quote, a little bit obnoxious with a bit of grrr is among the most brilliant pieces of automotive journalism I've seen. It's clear, concise, and perfectly captures the emotion that makes these otherwise hard to define cars special. Non-gearheads can understand it, and the phrase is a joy to share. Thanks for all you do, and best of luck on the road ahead.
You're very welcome, Stephen. I'm pleased with my inability to come up with words and just make sounds to describe words. Grr, R. That's
grr and R are words.
It is accurate. I appreciate that you appreciated
He wrote them out.
Yeah, he even spelled them correctly.
It actually says grr, R.
Those are words.
Thanks, Stephen.
All right. Next up from Rick from Utah, also a Patreon supporter. Thank you to all of our supporters. Woo-hoo! We appreciate you.
My pets appreciate you helping them buy pet food.
Rick says, you do a great job. You talked about what you do in your jobs, and I appreciate all your hard work. Thanks. Although I'm a little bit envious driving all these cool cars.
No, I'm just going to drive a Lamborghini.
Yeah, right.
I mean, last week I was driving a VW Taos.
That's a fine car.
It's not
a cool car.
All cool cars. Some of them are.
They're not all cool. They're fine. Some of them are like, you know what? This is good.
Wait till you hear what I'm driving this week.
Is it a Lamborghini?
No.
Oh.
GR Corolla Morizo.
Oh, that's right. You said
that is a cool car.
Yeah.
That's better than my car. I'll trade you the Lamborghini for that GR Corolla.
It'd probably fit better in the GR Corolla.
In the GR Corolla.
I had the Urus. I had the Huracan a few weeks ago. So they're like, hey, you want the Urus? I'm like, sure.
Anyway, Rick had 2 questions. I purchased a Mach-E all-wheel drive extended battery a year and a half ago. Absolutely love it. I purchased a Ford Level 2 charger, but with all the news about new charging stations and NACS charging, when I'm out and about, will there be adapters? So when I need to charge, I can just pull the adapter out to charge my car. So let's answer that one first.
Okay.
Yes, eventually, probably. There should be adapters. All the automakers, including Ford, have promised adapters coming next year when they start adding support for NACS. And so there's a bunch of companies that will probably be building these things, and they should be available within the next 12 months, hopefully by the early part of next year. And then there's also a handful of Tesla supercharger stations with the Magic docks, which kind of have the adapter built in. So that's that shouldn't be a problem. And there will also be CCS chargers, which may or may not work around for a long time. And then next question, Nicole, I need your help. My wife's lease is about to expire on her Toyota RAV4 XLE. A little background. We live in a small town about an hour out of Salt Lake City. So when we go to the big, quote, city, we have to drive through a pass. We start at 4,698 feet, go to nearly 6,000, and then down to 4,000 feet in 10 miles. In the winter, when we have doctor's appointments in the, quote, big city or do big shopping, it can be crazy. My wife has fallen in love with the torque and power of my Mach-E and would like something similar. So whatever we get has to be all-wheel drive. I usually do all of the background work and then give her informed options. Then she makes the ultimate decision. Would an EV or a plug-in be better? Do you have any recommendations? Nicole, what would she like? Would something like a plug-in Sorento have similar power? I'm doing my research and scheduling test drives soon, and I'd like to use the charger I already have. Tesla is out on her RAV4 Her RAV4 has 17,000 miles on it after 2.5 years, and my Mach-E already has 20,000 plus in a year and a half. You can see whose car is being driven to the big city. We're empty nesters and presently petless. Kids live out of state and visit once or twice a year.
Okay, so I'm trying to remember what I'm like frantically taking notes as we're reading through.
They drive the Mach-E to the big city right now.
They drive the Mach-E to the big city right now, and that is a really that's a fun. I mean, EVs always have a little more kick, that sort of acceleration is right there in an EV. So you're always going to find that more in an EV than you are in a gas car, even like the plug-in hybrids. I mean, you get it, but depending on how hard you're hitting the gas, and once you get up there, now you're on gas. You're not using the EV part of it.
Unless you're buying a McLaren.
Yeah, unless you're buying McLaren, I'm thinking that's probably not what you're looking for in the winter through a pass in the mountains outside Salt Lake City. I'm trying to guys, does the EV6 GT have all-wheel? What does that have?
Yeah, it's all-wheel drive.
All-wheel drive.
Because that's actually what pops into my head. If she's looking for something.
EV6 GT, wow, you're going all in.
You know what?
Let's do it.
I'm saying that.
An EV6 GT with winter tires.
And the reason I'm saying that is because they're driving the Mach-E. They like the Mach-E better than the RAV4. So if she wants something that has a little get up and go and feels a little more the Mach-E has that performance sort of vibe to it. So does the EV6. And if I'm remembering, so the regular EV6, but the EV6 GT is a little bit more fun. Yeah. So I would my first thing that pops to my head is EV6, or if you want to do the EV6 GT. That's my thought. What's your thought, guys?
I'm fine with
there's Mach-E's piling up on Judo lots. You can.
I know. That's what you want another Mach-E.
You can get a Mach-E GT. The Mach-E GT is all-wheel drive, but you already have a Mach-E. Don't get the same car twice. That's weird.
I would say Mach-E, except they're driving one. But I'm like, okay, so they're driving a Mach-E. That's the kind of thing that if they like that better than they like the RAV4, then the EV6 GT is what pops into my head as an EV, because you're already okay driving an EV. You already know that you're comfortable taking through the pass, and then it does okay, right? So, and it charges super fast. There's that.
Oh yeah, there's that.
The 10 to 8. What I'm trying to say, 10 to 80%. I don't have the numbers at hand, but 10 to 80% is stupidly
18
fast.
minutes.
It's 235, 236 is the charge rate.
Right. So you can charge that pretty fast. Quick. So it's not like you're going to be sitting around waiting forever once you go through to the big city for the shopping. You can charge it pretty much back up in no time.
You got plenty of cargo space in there. I mean, if your kids aren't with you, hold down that back seat.
Because you don't have to worry about the kids. And then for the 2 times a year or whatever, or once or twice a year they're in town, if they need to ride with you, you still can put people in the back seat of that and it's comfortable. You wouldn't want to do it all the time if they were always with you, but if you put a couple of adult kids back there, you could definitely do that. It's got enough room for cargo.
And it'll work with your existing charger.
Exactly. So you don't have to worry about changing that out. So if that's not on your list, I would put that on your list. I mean, you put it.
How about a Hyundai Ioniq 5N?
That's not out yet.
Yeah. I don't know what the date is.
I'm assuming
next year.
But he also said the Sorento, a plug-in Sorento has similar power. I feel like you would. I like the Sorento, and I think the plug-in is good. But I don't feel like
it's not gonna have nearly as much power. It's not gonna feel as strong as the Mach-E.
No, it's not gonna. And that's what's informing my decision here. Is if she likes the torque and the power of the Mach-E, then I would go with an EV6 GT or EV6 even. But I would say EV6 GT.
My only issue with the GT is it only has 200-ish miles, very
and
low,
what's the, did
200 something.
But they've only put 17,000 miles on the RAV4 in 2.5 years. Yeah, and it's only this is a 10-mile drive into Salt Lake from there.
Oh, is it only 10 miles? I thought it was 10 miles. Oh, get the EV6 GT. Why have we been talking about this?
Big elevation change, but it's only over 10 miles. So the range I don't think is going to be an issue.
EV6 GT, but have her drive that.
EV6 GT.
He does go on to say, after listening to the show, I bought snow tires and switched between the tires for the seasons.
Yay.
Excellent. Very, very good.
Good job.
We had record temperatures and snowfall this year, and we've never felt more safe driving with our weather changes. We lived in Southern California for 50 plus years. We moved up here to Utah. Neither of us have experienced driving in the snow, but listening to your show, we bought tires and it really helped us.
Yeah, because that is all the difference. Yay! Because everybody, winter tires are the best thing to have in the winter.
Yeah, I mean, that may be something to keep in mind, though. With the EV6 GT, ground clearance is not going to be great. So if they're depending on how quick they are with clearing the snow.
They've been doing it in the Mach-E, right? And I don't think the Mach-E ground
that's true.
clearance is
it's probably not much different.
Is it that much different? It's not like one's really SUV height and one's really sedan height. They're both middling. So you can see the hand motion I'm making for in the middle. So I'm all about the EV6 GT. Oh, Robbie's leaving us.
I have to go, so I'm not going to be able to help with the next two.
Okay.
We'll
figure it out.
There's a lot of
We'll
questions.
make do while you go drive your Lamborghini.
Just make some stuff up. Do you know what? Just make pretend you're me and just say ridiculous things, and people are like, oh yeah, that's Robbie.
Okay, we'll do that.
Just say Robbie wrote the script for us for this question.
Yeah, Robbie just told us what to say.
All right,
Bye,
we'll talk to you
Robbie.
next time.
Bye.
All right. Another possibility too, if you decide that you want something a little different from the Mach-E, might be to wait till later in the year, depending on what your timing is. If you need to do this, fairly soon, then I would go with the EV6. Otherwise, you might want to consider, the EV9, if you want something with a little more ground clearance, a little more SUV-like.
I don't know if they went that big, right? Because they're
That's
empty
true.
nesters with
Yeah,
no
they
pets
don't-
and
they
no
don't really
kids.
need
That might
something
be a
that
little
big.
more car than
Yeah.
they need.
Yeah. So, I go with the EV6 GT.
I really think that's my top one. I feel like if you're thinking Sorrento, have her test drive it just to see, but you're not going to it's not going to feel like the Mach-E.
Yeah, definitely not.
The GT, the EV6 GT.
It is a really good vehicle though.
It's a great vehicle, but if she likes that, like that performance feel, EV6 GT.
Yeah. All right.
All day.
Next up from Ed. Thank you for answering my question a few episodes ago. I really appreciate it, and it helped me make an informed decision. And for the life of me, I can't remember what the question was, but we will proceed with answering these questions.
Okay.
I have a second question regarding the CCS versus NACS connector. Could you give a quick, if possible, explanation of the engineering differences? Well, the main things are the NACS connector is physically much smaller than the CCS connector. CCS connector is a big bulky thing, and another important factor is the CCS connector. The latch, when to lock into place, is actually on the connector. So a lot of times sometimes when you go to chargers, if somebody has accidentally rolled over the connector, if they left it laying on the ground and they drove over it, that latch will get broken. And so when you put it on there, the friction will hold it on, but there's nothing to prevent somebody from pulling it off.
Right.
With NACS, the latch mechanism is actually in the port in the car. It's not on the connector. So it's much less likely to get broken. So that's one thing. The physical size is smaller. The NACS connector, as it was originally designed, the CCS and the J1772 connectors, one of the things, the requirements when they were developing the standards was it had to withstand 10,000 insertion cycles. So plugging it in and unplugging it 10,000 times. The NACS connector is apparently only designed for about 3,000 cycles. So it's not really designed with the same level of durability. And for Tesla, they made the decision to do that so they could have a smaller connector. And they also decided up front that they would do this and just go with, just plan on replacing them more frequently on the chargers, as they wear out. Instead of waiting till 10,000 cycles to replace them, they would replace them after 2,500, 3,000 cycles or whenever they needed to be replaced. So the specs are a little different, but function, in terms of what they actually do, the capabilities are similar. And the latest, it's supposed to be able to support up to 1,000 kilowatts, a megawatt charging with that NACS connector. So we'll see. Pros and cons, I kind of covered that. The biggest pro for NACS is the size, and it's also a lot easier to insert. And we talked about this before. If you actually look at the charge port on a Tesla, the edges of the port where you plug it in are kind of tapered a little bit, so they're curved a little bit. So when you stick the charger in, or the connector in, it goes in much easier, and you don't necessarily have to have it directly perpendicular. It doesn't have to go straight in.
Really,
if you have it,
it's much easier because because I plugged in a Tesla too, and it is pretty easy. But when you're plugging in the CCS, or CSS, am I saying
CCS?
Wrong? CCS, if you were slightly off angle, you are not plugging that in. Like, it is not kind to you. And if you're trying to plug in a dark spot, like it's not bright, you have that moment like, why am I not lining this up right? Like they're definitely harder to plug in.
Yeah. And because they're bigger and heavier, and the cables for CCS are heftier, when they get cold, they get stiff.
I've dealt with in some cold weather, and there was one time I was driving with another person, and it took both of us, because between trying to line it up so that the plug and the port went together correctly, and just getting the cable itself to bend the way we wanted, it was ridiculous. So yeah, the cold weather does make them a little challenging.
And, if you happen to have any kind of mobility or strength issues with your hands, like if you have arthritis, or anything else like that, then it becomes even harder, to handle that thing and get it on there. So the NACS, with the thinner cable, smaller connector, it's easier to get a grip on. It's easier to insert. It's just going to be a lot easier for people to use. Future proofing, the NACS is supposed to be able to handle up to 1 megawatt. So that shouldn't be an issue. Obviously existing vehicles with CCS, they will eventually at some point have to use an adapter to charge from an NACS charger. European standard, in Europe, they use CCS type 2, which is a variant. We have CCS here in North America. We have CCS type 1, because the CCS, as I talked about before, they started with the J1772 connector, which is the round. If you look at the connector, it's the round part with 5 pins in it. And that's just for AC charging. And basically what they did was they just added on 2 more big pins for DC charging. And because here in the US for AC, we use single phase AC systems, there's 5 pins in the AC part of the connector. The CCS type 2 and the version of J1772 that they use in Europe, that AC part of it is different. It has 2 extra pins because in Europe they use 3-phase electricity. And so, you can get more power out of that. But it's basically pretty similar. And in Europe, the European Union mandated several years back that everybody had to use CCS type 2, no exceptions. And that includes Tesla. So in Europe, Tesla doesn't have their own connector, their proprietary connector, NACS on there. They use CCS type 2, and superchargers in Europe have CCS type 2 connector on them. Same thing in China. China has a different standard called GBT. And Tesla uses that just like everybody else. The only place where they use their proprietary connector has been in North America. And it's really not that much of an issue because I don't know about you, but I don't usually drive from Europe to North America very often.
Not often. It's a little tricky. It's a tricky thing to drive. Yeah.
And not very many people drive from North America to China. So, cars,
also tricky.
Vehicles tend to spend most of their life, in one region.
Right.
And so as long as any given region is, standardized, and that's hopefully what we'll have here now with NACS, then it's not, it doesn't matter.
Moving to NACS is just going to make it weirdly more like other countries, even though we're not having the same standard. We just have a standard.
Yes.
So to have a standard is nice as opposed to having willy-nilly options for what your car might be doing. It will definitely simplify things.
Why is this happening now? Is this all driven by Elon? Not entirely. I mean, he obviously wanted others to use the superchargers because that means he makes more revenue from charging people for electricity. But he made the Tesla connector open source and rebranded it as NACS and said everybody can use it. And I've confirmed with multiple automakers now that they don't have to pay royalties to Tesla to use that connector. It is in fact truly open. And it's now being incorporated into the SAE standard. So there is a benefit to Tesla in terms of more revenue. But really the real reason this is happening is because the other automakers have decided that they're fed up with the poor reliability of everybody else's chargers, and they want their customers to have a better charging experience.
Because really, at this point, we've had endless conversations about how the fact, like Tesla or hate Tesla, their charging network is the most stable one out there. You can pretty much walk up to a Tesla charger or drive up to one, and you're going to get exactly what you expect. You go up to other charging networks, they're in weird spaces, the connectors are broken, the charging rates are off, or they don't break. Those kinds of things, those super frustrating things, kill the EV experience for people and can dissuade people from getting an EV altogether or push them towards Tesla. Well, if they're using the same thing as Tesla, now that particular problem is removed. And that's just good for all the automakers in terms of you can buy our car and use that same charger your Tesla does. That's a good thing for everybody.
Yeah. And, the big unknown, or one of the many unknowns at this point actually, is whether Tesla will remain as reliable as they have been, because a lot of the reliability problems we've had with other networks has actually been software issues, because, with a gas powered car, when you stick that nozzle from the gas pump into your car, the pump is not talking to your car. It doesn't care what car it is. All it cares about is there's a nozzle there or there's a hole there that this nozzle fits into, and it's flowing gas until it hits the stopper, until the neck fills up with gas, and then it stops. With an EV, the charger and the vehicle are constantly talking to each other, negotiating, okay, how much power can I send you? How much electricity can I send you? How fast can I send it? And, so there's this constant communication going on. And, when you've got a lot of automakers doing their own software on the vehicle side and a lot of charger makers doing their software on the charger side, there are inevitable incompatibilities. So far, Tesla has not had to deal with that because they've controlled both sides, the car and the charger. And they have the same software in all their chargers, the same software in all their cars, and they talk to each other, and it's easy. Once you have a whole bunch of other companies trying to use Tesla chargers, will that still be the case? Will the software still be compatible? Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see.
We'll have to wait and see. Yeah.
So it might get worse for Tesla or not. Hopefully it won't. And then question 5B, is this push to change about using the Tesla charging infrastructure or just the physical connector itself? Both, as we've kind of already explained. Mm-hmm. Given that the cables at the Tesla chargers are too short for anything other than a Tesla, what does this mean for these stations? So this is one of those unknowns. Unless you happen to drive, let's see, I guess either something like Hyundai or Kia or Genesis EV, where the charge ports are on the rear corner, or maybe a Rivian.
It's on the rear quarter.
Is it on the rear corner on the Mercedes?
Yeah, it's on the rear corner on this one.
Yeah. So on some vehicles it won't be a problem. Others it will be a problem. Going forward, Tesla has started to roll out in a couple of locations in Europe their version 4 charger. It's their next generation charger, which is higher power. They don't have any in the US yet, but they'll probably start rolling those out eventually here as well. Those apparently do have longer cables on them because they've already been opening up the charging network in Europe to non-Tesla vehicles for over a year now. And so I would imagine that going forward, as they replace the cables, they'll replace them with longer cables. So hopefully that won't be a problem.
Yeah.
I know it's a long multi-pronged question, perhaps isn't ideal for feedback. Well, too late for telling us that just now.
No, we should have read that first. Dang it.
I just really appreciate the history and engineering aspects that you talk about in a non-technical way. All right. Sid Polk wrote actually a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't put it on here yet because I was trying to find out the answer. He said, when I was a kid, Lightning struck a pole near our house, and the surge destroyed our TV. When I was just out of college, lightning struck a pole, and the surge through the phone line destroyed my roommate's modem and PC. Do I have to worry if my car is plugged in during a thunderstorm?
Okay, I'd like to clarify first, nobody needs to live near or with Sid because apparently he's struck by lightning a lot. So just consider your roommates carefully. But go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, good point. Actually, one of my neighbors down the block, a tree, two of my neighbors, because the tree was in between their houses, last summer got struck by lightning during a storm.
Oh, goodness.
And it was like, I don't know, like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and we were in bed, and I heard this really loud. I mean, I heard the thunderstorm, but then I heard a really loud bang, and the tree had gotten struck, and the whole top half of the tree was basically destroyed by the lightning.
Yeah, lightning's bad.
It's really bad. But for what it's worth, automakers have thought of that. They are aware of the issue, and I've confirmed with a couple of different automakers that they do have surge protection built in to their charging circuits. Okay. So if your EV is plugged in during a storm, if the charger gets struck or the cable or the vehicle, generally if the vehicle gets struck by lightning, it's usually not a problem because your car has rubber tires on it and it's grounded. So it's usually not a problem. It's going to be more if your charger gets struck by lightning. But they have thought about that, and they've got a lot of surge protection built in to try to mitigate the impact of any kind of electrical surge through the charger or through the cable. Obviously, depending on how much power there is from the lightning, it could still potentially damage the vehicle, but they've tried to mitigate that.
I feel like that's the case, even like, if you have surge protectors on your things in your house, like you're probably protecting them, but every now and then they don't, depending on how lightning hits.
There's only so much power you can absorb.
Right. So like you're probably pretty safe, but nothing's perfect.
And, a vehicle or a charger can be replaced. You can't be. So,
correct.
Stay out of the storm, stay inside if there's a thunderstorm going on. And, if you can, stay away from your vehicle. And hopefully everything will be okay. Finally, Neil wrote in to say, interesting that you guys were accused of anti-Tesla bias, but considering that there are many manufacturers, each with many brand lines, each with many models and trim levels that change up every year, it seems to me that Tesla's few models with no advertised 20XX change up makes Tesla an infinitesimal fraction of available news items. So any significant airtime to the podcast would be out of proportion to their fraction of the total news universe. I bet if Tesla were to have new models and change things up every year, maybe it would be noticed more. Enjoy the show, Neil from Morrow. Well, thank you for that, Neil. You're right. I mean, Tesla doesn't do the usual model changeovers like other automakers do.
Right.
They actually change up their vehicles far more frequently than most people realize, but a lot of those changes are under the skin and you don't see them. Like I was at an event at a company here in the Detroit area called Caresoft about a month ago. They're a benchmarking company, so they do vehicle teardowns. Actually, they tear down other stuff too, but they're an engineering services company, and so they will get vehicles either that they purchase or that companies, their client companies, bring to them and say, we want you to do a teardown of this and analyze it and give us the results. And among the things that they showed us, they've done a bunch of teardowns on EVs, including they've done 3 teardowns over the last 3 years on Tesla Model Ys. They had one that was built in 2020, one that was built in 2022, and one that was built early this year. And from the outside, but when you look at them, when they're all put together, they all look exactly the same. You cannot tell the difference between them. Right. There's no styling differences or anything. But when they tore them down, it's remarkable how different they actually were under the skin. Mm-hmm. The one from 2020, you've probably heard about these giga castings. Basically, they're large die castings that Tesla has started using in their structures. And the one from 2020, the whole front structure was still made up of a bunch of steel stampings that were welded together, and typical way that most vehicles are built. But the rear end, they had two of these large aluminum castings and then a piece of aluminum in between that was welded in there. So for the rear structure, and the shock mounts where the shocks and the suspension and everything are hooked up, it was two large aluminum castings. For the one built in 2022, instead of two castings, there was one big casting that made up that entire rear structure that's under the sheet metal. And then there was another one, and the front was still the same as the 2020 version. The 2023 version had that rear single casting, and then it had a similar giant casting for the front structure to replace the front. Plus, the body on the 2020 and the 2022 models still had a floor pan in there. After they took everything out, there was sheet of steel that made up the floor pan, and the battery pack is bolted to underneath that. The 2023, which was built with their new structural battery pack, had a big hole where the floor should be. There's no separate floor, because what they do, and I'll include a video in the show notes when Monroe and Associates also did a teardown of one of these. And basically the battery pack now makes up the floor, and the seats are actually bolted to the top of the battery pack. So when you put the car up on a hoist and then you lower the battery pack down, all the seats come down with it. They're actually attached to the battery pack, which is the floor of the car.
That's
so
freaky.
there's a lot fewer pieces in this thing that go into, so it's easier to assemble. But there are some downsides to this. And this is one of the things I was talking to the Magna guys today about. I asked them about this because among other things that they do, they make body panels and frames and all kinds of stuff. And I talked to one of the structural engineering guys, and I asked him about, these large die castings and, whether other automakers are looking at it. He said, yeah, other automakers are looking at it. And what I heard from him, and what I'd also heard from somebody else a couple of weeks ago on this topic, was that one of the problems with these large castings is when you get into a crash, they, with a traditional steel or aluminum structure, that's made from a bunch of stampings that are welded together, they use, they usually use multiple materials in there. It's not all the same material, and some of the parts are designed to deform in the event of a crash, to absorb energy. Because what you want to do is you want the vehicle body, the vehicle structure, to absorb the energy of a crash, so it's not transmitted to the occupants in the vehicle. So there's less likelihood of the occupants being injured.
Like the car looks squished, but you're fine.
Yes. Yeah. You can walk away from a crash where the car may be, severely damaged or destroyed, but you walk away from it with little or no injuries. With these castings don't work in the same way. And they typically, they don't deform the way these steel stampings or these metal stampings will. They will just fracture. They'll absorb the energy, but they fracture. And basically what happens is, in the event of depending on the severity of the crash, a lot of times with a traditional structure, it's repairable. They can replace some of the parts,
right,
and they can straighten stuff out and they can repair it. With these castings, they can't be repaired. You basically have to rip the entire front of the vehicle off, or the rear of the vehicle off, and throw it away. Well, it gets recycled, because you can.
Right,
nice thing about metals is you can melt them down again and reuse them
and use them again.
Yeah, but so the repair costs are substantially higher, and a lot of times, insurance companies will end up just totaling the car. And so that, if you've got a structure like that, there's a much higher probability that in the event of a crash, it's just going to be totaled instead of repaired.
Yeah.
So just something to think about.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we've got for this week.
That's it. That's all we got, Sam.
Yeah.
Did we do okay without Robbie? Should we say something goofy? Blah, blah, blah. I'm tall. Blah, blah, blah. Cars are small.
He's all gangly, and his arms are flopping around all over the place.
Blah, 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 blah. Okay, there.
He doesn't fit into anything because he's so tall.
My band stuff doesn't fit. Okay. I think we got it covered.
Okay. All right.
Bye,
Thanks, everybody.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.
Have you ever killed a houseplant before? Don't worry, you are not alone. But what if I told you you're not destined to be a plant killer? What if I told you you could not only fill your home with gorgeous, luscious, happy, thriving plants, but live a happier life through caring for them? Hey, new plant friend, my name is Maria. I am a former plant killer turned happy plant lady and host of the Growing Joy with Plants podcast, where it is my life's mission to help you grow happy plants and thrive alongside them. Because when you learn to care for plants, you really learn to slow down, connect with nature, and nurture yourself too. Each week, I share expert tips, inspiring conversations, and soulful planty wisdom to help you grow a greener, happier life. So if you're ready to turn your plant struggles into plant joy and get the green thumb you've always dreamed of, search Growing Joy with Plants wherever you listen to podcasts and hit subscribe. That's Growing Joy with Plants podcast. Let's grow some joy together.